In today's video, which is the first of two videos about urban legends that are based on true crimes, we'll take a look at the internet boogeyman, the Slavemaster. But before that, we want to bring you a word from our friends and the sponsor of this video, Magellan TV. If you're looking for something new to watch right now, then you should check out the documentaries on Magellan TV. Just a few days ago, I watched a riveting documentary called The Last Confession of the Cannibal. The documentary is about Alexander Pierce, who escaped from prison several times, and supposedly, while he was on the lam, he resorted to cannibalism. Magellan TV also has a lot of excellent history documentaries about some of the evilest people who ever lived. Magellan TV is run by filmmakers, and they have thousands of documentaries, plus new documentaries are being added every day. Magellan TV is ad-free, and they have some stunning documentaries that are available in 4K. Magellan TV can be watched anywhere, at any time, on your TV, laptop, or mobile device. It works with Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, iOS, and Google Play. You can even cast from your phone to your TV. Magellan TV has a special offer for criminally listed viewers. Just go to try.magellantv.com/criminally listed and you'll get a month for free. So please help support Criminally Listed and get access to thousands of great documentaries by checking out Magellan TV. Slavemaster. If you were using email in the year 2000, you might have gotten an email like this. If a guy by the name of Slavemaster contacts you, you do not answer. He has killed 56 women that he has talked to on the internet. Please send this out to all the women on your buddy list. Also ask them to pass this on. He has been on Yahoo, AOL, Excite so far. This is no joke. And please send this to men too, just in case. Send to everyone you know. In other emails, the killer's username was JokerKid613, Dreamweaver Grey, and Monkeyman935. Regardless of what the username was, the content of the emails was generally the same. A serial killer was prowling the internet, sometimes in S&M chat rooms, and he was enticing women to meet him. According to the emails, he had already killed dozens of women he met online. It turns out that there is some truth to this online urban legend. There was a serial killer who used the internet username Slavemaster, and he did kill several women he met online. However, his victim count wasn't as prolific as the chain email suggests. His name was John Edward Robinson. Robinson was born in December 1943 in Cicero, Illinois. Robinson was first arrested in 1969 at the age of 25. At the time, he was living in Kansas City, Missouri, with his wife and his two young children. He was arrested because he had embezzled $33,000 from an X-ray laboratory where he worked as an X-ray technician. It turned out that Robinson had used forged credentials to get the job. Robinson had gone to college to study to be an X-ray technician, but he dropped out after 2 years. For embezzling the money, he was sentenced to 3 years of probation. The following year, John Robinson got a job with an insurance company in Chicago, Illinois. Once again, he was caught embezzling money from his employer. He agreed to pay the money back so he didn't face any more charges. However, he was not supposed to leave Missouri because he was on probation. So he was forced to move back to Missouri, and 3 more years were added onto his probation. After moving back to Missouri, Robinson's wife gave birth to a set of fraternal twins, bringing their total number of children to 4. Robinson then started his own medical consulting business. He mailed out some letters soliciting investments. The letters were littered with false information. One person who received the letter realized it was a scam, so they went to the Securities Exchange Commission. This led to Robinson being charged with interstate securities fraud. He would eventually plead guilty to the charge. He was fined $2,500 and his probation was extended by another 3 years. Robinson continued to get jobs, and several times he was caught embezzling. Sometimes he would be arrested, but for all his arrests, he only served 3 weeks in jail. That was until the spring of 1981, when he spent 60 days in jail for stealing $6,000. After Robinson got out of jail, he and a friend started 2 consulting businesses. The businesses were nothing more than covers for Robinson's scams. In the summer of 1984, for one of the businesses, he rented out a duplex in Overland Park, Missouri. Overland Park is in the Kansas City metropolitan area. The duplex was nothing more than a brothel that specialized in sadomasochistic sex. Robinson was supposedly the leader of an S&M cult called the International Council of Masters. His title was Slavemaster. In the fall of 1984, John Robinson met 19-year-old Paula Godfrey. He offered her a job with one of his consulting businesses. As part of the job, Robinson told Godfrey he was going to send her to San Antonio, Texas for some training. Robinson said he would pay all her expenses. Godfrey happily accepted the job. On September 1st, 1984, Robinson, who was 40, picked up Godfrey at her family's home in Overland Park. Godfrey's family thought that Robinson was driving her to the airport so that she could fly to San Antonio. The plan was that Godfrey was going to call her family when she arrived at her destination, but she never called. A few days later, her family still had not heard from her, so her father flew to San Antonio. He found no trace of her. She had not even checked in to her hotel. Godfrey's father traveled back to Overland Park and he went to Robinson's office. Robinson said that he had no idea what happened to Godfrey. Godfrey's father told Robinson that if he didn't hear from his daughter in the next 3 days, there would be trouble. Then a couple days later, the Godfreys received a letter in the mail. The envelope had a postmark that indicated the letter was mailed from Kansas City. The letter had been typed, and the author claimed to be Godfrey. She said she wanted to start her life over, and she did not know where she was going. The writer also thanked John Robinson. The sign-off of the letter was handwritten, and it said, "Love ya, Paula." Paula Godfrey's family immediately noticed some things wrong with the letter. For example, the author used profanity, and Godfrey wouldn't have done that. The letter also had several grammatical errors, which was uncharacteristic of Godfrey. Finally, Godfrey's family did not recognize the signature. The Godfrey family took the letter to the police. But the police saw no evidence that Godfrey had met with foul play, and if she wanted to disappear, that was her choice. So the police did not do any investigating. Just before Christmas 1984, John Robinson got in contact with a nonprofit group that supported young single mothers. Robinson said that he and other local businessmen wanted to help some young mothers by giving them a place to live and a job. In January 1985, John Robinson was introduced to Lisa Stassi, who was a 19-year-old mother with a 4-month-old daughter named Tiffany. Lisa was married, but the relationship with her husband was strained. Due to their marital problems, he re-enlisted in the Navy. Robinson told Lisa that his name was John Osborne. After meeting, Robinson put Lisa and Tiffany up in the motel room for several days. On January 10, 1985, Lisa's mother-in-law, Betty, received a strange phone call from Lisa. Lisa had told Betty that she had learned something. Lisa said she had been informed that Betty was going to try and get custody of Tiffany by telling the authorities that she was an unfit mother. Betty assured her that was not true and she was not trying to get custody of Tiffany. Lisa then told Betty that she had been asked to sign 4 blank pieces of paper. Her mother-in-law advised her not to sign anything. Lisa then said, "Here they come," and then she hung up the phone. That was the last time any of Lisa Stassi's friends or family heard from her. They later learned that she checked out of the motel shortly after the phone call. Lisa's sister-in-law reported her and Tiffany missing the next day. Lisa's in-laws learned that the motel room where Lisa and Tiffany had been staying was paid for with a credit card linked to one of John Robinson's consulting businesses. One of Lisa's in-laws confronted Robinson at his office, and Robinson physically pushed him out of the building. The police then began to investigate the disappearance of the mother and daughter. A detective interviewed John Robinson, and he told them that Lisa wasn't missing. He said that Lisa had recently babysat for a local woman. The detective interviewed the woman, and initially she confirmed what Robinson had told him. Then she admitted that Lisa had not babysat for her, and she had been blackmailed by Robinson to say that she had. The local police decided to call in the FBI. Robinson was interviewed by the FBI, and he claimed that Lisa had run off with some guy to start a new life in Colorado. Not long after Robinson talked to the FBI, some members of Lisa's family and some employees at the women's shelter where she had previously lived received some typewritten letters with Lisa's signature on them. All the letters said she had run off with Tiffany to start a new life. The FBI developed a theory that Robinson was running a baby brokering scam. They thought that for a fee, he was illegally arranging for couples to adopt babies. However, they could find no physical evidence to back up this theory. Nor could they find any physical evidence that he was involved in the disappearances of Lisa and her daughter Tiffany. Nevertheless, the FBI continued to investigate him. The Secret Service was also investigating Robinson. They suspected that Robinson and his business partner, Irv Blattner, were forging signatures on government checks. The Secret Service questioned Blattner, and he told them about his and Robinson's illegal activities. On March 21, 1985, Robinson was arrested for committing several financial crimes. He posted bond, and he was released hours later. Robinson knew that Blattner had turned on him, so he hatched a plan to have Blattner discredited. He convinced a woman named Teresa Williams, who was a sex worker at his bordello, to help him frame Blattner for murder. What Williams didn't know was that Robinson planned on killing her. Robinson had told Williams that they were just going to fake her death and she was going to go live in the Bahamas. Robinson also thought that the police believed that Blattner was responsible for Williams' disappearance. They might have also thought that he was responsible for the disappearances of Paula Godfrey, Lisa Stassi, and her daughter Tiffany. Before Robinson could set his plan in motion, a detective and 2 FBI agents talked to Williams. They told her that 2 other women who were associated with Robinson had disappeared. It turned out that Williams was already afraid of Robinson because of his erratic behavior. Williams told the detective and the FBI agents about Robinson's plan, and they placed her in a safe house. After Teresa Williams was placed in the safe house, Robinson desperately tried to track her down, and he even hired a private detective to find her. The private detective was able to locate her. The FBI found out that the private detective had found her, so the FBI decided to get Williams out of the state. Shortly afterward, Robinson had a probation hearing. The judge revoked Robinson's probation and ordered him to serve out the rest of his sentence, which was 7 years, in prison. Robinson appealed. He was allowed to stay out of jail on bond while he awaited the outcome of his appeal. In May 1986, a judge decided on Robinson's appeal. He ruled in Robinson's favor, and he did not have to go to prison. During this time, Robinson had been scamming a company in Johnsonville County, Kansas. They had been paying his invoices for consulting work that he had not done. In January 1987, Robinson was found guilty of fraud. The prosecutor told the judge how many times Robinson had been investigated, and he asked for a harsh punishment. The judge agreed that Robinson should receive a stiff sentence, so he sentenced him to 5 to 14 years of prison. But Robinson didn't start serving his sentence right away, and this would have deadly consequences. Catherine Clampett had struggled with drug addiction in the first half of the 1980s. By the end of 1986, Clampett, who was 27, had turned a corner. She wanted a better life for her and her young son. In January 1987, Clampett moved to Oakland Park to live with her brother. While Clampett looked for a job, her son lived with her parents. She came across a classified ad in the newspaper for a consulting business which offered a job with lots of traveling. Clampett applied for the job, and she was interviewed by the owner, John Robinson. Robinson decided to hire her, and he put her up in a motel for several nights. Clampett's brother expected that she would come back and stay with him again, but she didn't. In fact, he never saw or heard from his sister again. He reported her missing several months later on June 15, 1987. John Robinson began his 5 to 14-year sentence in May 1987. In prison, he was a model inmate. He took advantage of classes that were offered by the prison, and he learned about computers. It turned out that Robinson was gifted when it came to computers. He was even able to write computer software for the state of Kansas. It's believed that his software saved the state $100,000. In prison, Robinson suffered some minor strokes. As a result, there was some minor slackness on the right side of his face. The strokes did not affect his intelligence or verbal skills. Robinson was able to charm the prison staff. When he applied for parole for the first time, several of the prison's employees wrote letters on his behalf. Robinson was released from the Kansas prison on January 23, 1991. He had served less than 4 years. On the day Robinson was released, he was picked up and taken to a jail in Missouri. He still had 7 years left on his sentence, which he could have served while on probation had he not been convicted of any other crime. A judge decided to incarcerate Robinson in a medium security prison. While Robinson was serving his sentence, he met Beverly Bonner. Beverly was the prison's librarian, and her husband, William, was a physician at the hospital. Robinson managed to charm Beverly. Robinson told her that when he got out of prison, he had a job for her with his business, Hydroglow. The job was high-paying, and it involved travel. Robinson left prison sometime in 1993 after serving about 2 years, and he moved back in with his wife and 4 children. After Robinson went to prison, his wife sold their house and she bought a trailer park in Belton, Missouri. She both managed and lived in the trailer park. Robinson's 6 years in prison had done very little to diminish his dark impulses. While he could have gotten a job with his newfound computer skills, Robinson was not interested in honest work. Instead, using his computer, he created documents that looked like they were from legitimate investment firms. He would then mail out these letters. Of course, when people sent him money, he would just pocket the money. In February 1994, Beverly Bonner divorced her husband, William. She initially told her mother that she was going to work for a business called Hydroglow that was run by a man named John Robinson. But then she later told her mother that she was mistaken and the man's name was Jim Redmond. Soon after Beverly left, her family started receiving letters that were supposedly from her with postmarks in Europe. The letters were typewritten and they were signed by Beverly. The final letter they received had a Russian postmark. The letter, supposedly from Beverly, said she was making her way to China. Then the letter suddenly stopped. When Beverly divorced her husband, she was awarded alimony payments of $1,000 a month. Her mother would send the checks to a mail center in Olathe, Kansas. Even after her family stopped receiving letters, the checks continued to be cashed. Before Beverly went missing, Robinson had her sign blank pieces of paper. It turned out that Robinson had found a service on the internet that would put postmarks of different countries on envelopes. Around the same time that Beverly supposedly went on her trip to Europe, Robinson rented out a storage unit in Raymore, Missouri. He told people that he was storing his sister's belongings there. He said that his sister was traveling around with her business, Hydroglow. He wasn't even sure if she was going to return because she was having so much fun in Australia. One item that Robinson dropped off was a large barrel. Beverly's family became very worried about her. In 1995, Beverly's son died, and people could not understand why she was not at the funeral. Some people suspected that she was dead. But dead or alive, none of her friends or family had any idea where in the world she was. Debbie Faith was born in November 1978 in Dallas County, Texas. At some point, Debbie and her parents, Sheila and John, moved to Fullerton, California. At a young age, Debbie was diagnosed with cerebral palsy and she used a motorized wheelchair. When Debbie was a teenager, a doctor realized she had been misdiagnosed. She had spina bifida and not cerebral palsy. Both are neurological conditions that affect mobility. In 1991, Debbie's father died, leaving her mother, Sheila, as her sole caregiver. Debbie and Sheila lived off $1,000 a month Social Security payment, but it was never enough because of Debbie's medical bills. In 1993, Sheila and Debbie moved to Watsonville, California. Sheila wanted a male companion, so she started looking for one online in chat rooms and through personal ads. She and Debbie had moved to Watsonville so that she could be with a man whom she met online. However, the man was married and he did not plan on leaving his wife. Debbie and Sheila then moved to Pueblo, Colorado. While living there, Sheila met a man online who called himself John. When Sheila talked about her online boyfriend to her friends and family, she was vague. She said that he lived in Missouri or Kansas. He supposedly owned a large farm with horses. John and Sheila's online conversations soon turned to phone conversations. John told Sheila that if she and Debbie came and lived with him, he would get Debbie to ride a horse. He would also pay for Debbie to go to a private school for people with disabilities. He also promised to take Sheila on a cruise. The offers were too good for Sheila to turn down. So in the spring of 1994, she and Debbie moved away from Pablo. They had their mail, including Debbie's social security checks, forwarded to a mail center in Olathe, Kansas. Not long after the move, the only person who supposedly heard from Sheila was her brother. He started getting typed letters with her signature on them. Otherwise, no one saw or heard from 45-year-old Sheila Faith or her 15-year-old daughter Debbie. But Debbie's social security checks kept getting cashed. By December 1995, John Robinson, who did not have a full-time job, amassed enough money to put down the down payment on a house in Florida for his son and grandchildren. Soon afterward, Robinson and his wife moved into a trailer park in Olathe. In the mobile home, Robinson set up 5 computers. He used the computers to roam S&M message boards and chat rooms. His username was Slavemaster. He would meet men and women online and have them sign a slave contract. The contract gave control of their lives over to Robinson. Part of the contract was that they had to turn all their money over to him. Amazingly, some people sent Robinson their life savings. In early 1997, John Robinson met 18-year-old Isabel Lewiska. Lewiska had been born in Poland, and she and her parents came to the United States in 1993. When Lewiska met Robinson, she was a freshman at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. In June 1998, Lewiska told her friends and family that she was quitting school. She told them that she was moving to Kansas to work for an entrepreneur whom she had met online. After Lewiska moved, her parents started receiving strange emails, supposedly from Lewiska. Lewiska's parents were concerned, so her father wrote to her in Polish and asked her questions that only she would know the answers to. Her parents would receive short responses in Polish. Unlike a lot of other women who disappeared soon after hooking up with Robinson, Lewiska did not vanish right away. She even enrolled in a community college in Overland Park, Kansas in September 1998. Lewiska bragged to people at school that she was married to an older man. She also told people that she did not live with her husband. What no one knew was that Lewiska had signed one of Robinson's slave contracts. The contract consisted of over 100 expectations that Lewiska was supposed to meet. John Robinson always kept himself busy. He was constantly looking for new women to victimize, and he was still married, and he had children and grandchildren. So Lewiska spent a lot of time by herself. During the 2 years that she lived in Overland Park, she made several friends. In the fall of 1999, Lewiska told a friend that she was moving away. That was the last time any of her friends in Kansas saw her. Around the same time, the tone of emails that Lewiska's parents were receiving had changed. One email said she was no longer going to respond in Polish. Then one day, they received an email, supposedly from their daughter, saying that she no longer wanted to talk to them. After that, the email stopped. In September 1999, John Robinson bought a 16-acre farm near Lacine, Kansas. Robinson and his wife moved a mobile home onto the farm, and they took up residence there. In the fall of 1999, Suzette Trouton was 27 years old. She lived in Monroe, Michigan, and she had 2 part-time jobs. She had a job as a home health care worker, and she also worked at a Big Boys restaurant where her mother was the manager. In that fall of 1999, Suzette met John Robinson online. Robinson told her that he was looking for help with his elderly father. Robinson said he would pay her $60,000 a year, and he also said he would pay for her to travel around the world with his father. In February 2000, Suzette left her home and moved to Kansas City, Missouri. After a few weeks, Suzette's mother, Carol, had not heard from her. So Carol called the phone number where Suzette said she could be reached. A man answered the phone. He said that he did not know where Suzette was because she had run off with someone. In the days that followed, Suzette's friends and family received some emails and letters supposedly from her. Some of the envelopes had postmarks from California. Suzette's mother, Carol, received a letter in the mail, and she thought it was odd. For example, her daughter was a notoriously bad speller, but the letter contained few spelling mistakes. She also thought that the letter lacked her daughter's personality. So about 3 weeks after Carol talked to the man on the phone, she reported her daughter missing. The only thing that Carol knew about the man she went to work for was that he called himself JR. A detective investigated Suzette's disappearance. He learned that her name had been used to rent out a storage unit. The detective then found out that John Robinson also rented a storage unit in the same complex. The detective was aware of Robinson's criminal history, so he started a more thorough investigation of Robinson. One of the first people he talked to was a man named Steve Hames. Hames had been Robinson's parole officer in the 1980s. Hames had always thought that Robinson was a dangerous man, and he kept tabs on him for years. Hames had been worried that after Robinson was paroled in 1993, he was going to kill him or someone in his family. Hames gave the detective all the information he had on Robinson. The detective sought out more assistance on the case, and a task force was formed. They started surveilling Robinson. The task force desperately wanted to arrest Robinson for the murder of Suzette Trouton, but the district attorney wanted some ironclad evidence. After all, they couldn't even prove that Suzette was dead. In early May 2000, a woman named Gianna Milliron traveled from Texas to Kansas City to visit Robinson. Milliron met Robinson on an S&M website. Milliron was unemployed at the time. Robinson had invited her to come to Kansas City so that she could work for him and they could also have a sexual relationship. Robinson put Milliron up in a motel room. Milliron and Robinson had sex, but she thought he was too rough. He also took photographs of her nude body without her permission. A few days after she arrived, Robinson ordered her to go back to Texas, put all her stuff in storage, and then return to Kansas City. Milliron did as she was told and returned to Kansas City a few weeks later. Robinson continued to abuse her. He would also abandon her for days at a time. Milliron was in a city she didn't know, and she had no friends or family within hundreds of miles. Also, she had no money, so she couldn't go anywhere. Milliron finally decided it was best to talk to the police. A detective picked her up, and she was interviewed by the task force that was looking to arrest John Robinson. On June 2, 2000, the police went to John Robinson's home with a search warrant. He was arrested for sexually assaulting Gianna Milliron, among other charges. Robinson's mobile home was searched, and evidence that connected him to the 8 missing women was found. Robinson's computer was searched, and even more evidence was found that connected him to several of the missing women. The police brought a dog that searches for cadavers onto the property. The dog led them to a shed that was surrounded by some tall grass on the property. Behind the shed were 2 yellow 55-gallon drums. Inside the drums were 2 human bodies. They were later identified as 28-year-old Suzette Troughton and 21-year-old Isabel Lewiska. Suzette had been dead for about 3 months, and Lewiska had been dead for nearly a year. Both women had been killed by a single blow to the head. Their injuries were consistent with a hammer. The police then went to a storage unit that Robinson had rented in Raymore, Missouri. Inside of it, they found 3 more barrels, which each contained a body. In one barrel was 49-year-old Beverly Bonner, who went missing 7 years earlier. In the other 2 barrels were 45-year-old Sheila Faith and her 15-year-old daughter, Debbie. The mother and daughter were last seen alive about 6 years earlier. They had all been killed by multiple blows to the head with a hammer-like instrument. None of the 5 victims had any defensive wounds, which suggests that Robinson killed them in a surprise attack. The police also found evidence that connected Robinson to the disappearances of 19-year-old Paula Godfrey, 19-year-old Lisa Stassi, and 27-year-old Catherine Clampett. Godfrey disappeared in September 1984, Lisa vanished in January 1985, and Clampett was reported missing in June 1987. Their remains have never been found. When Lisa Stassi went missing, she was with her 4-month-old daughter, Tiffany. The police learned that Robinson had sold Tiffany to his brother and sister-in-law, who were looking to adopt a child. They had raised the girl for over 15 years as their own. They had given her the name Heather. DNA testing was done on Heather, and it confirmed that the girl was Tiffany Stassi. When Tiffany's biological father found out she was alive, he said he wanted to meet her, but he would not fight for custody of her. As a result, she continued to live with Robinson's brother and sister-in-law. Robinson's brother and sister-in-law felt like they were also victims of Robinson. John Robinson ended up being charged with 3 counts of murder in Kansas. Those were the murders of Suzette Troughton, Isabel Lewiska, and Lisa Stassi. He was also charged with custodial interference regarding Tiffany Stassi. John Robinson's trial started in September 2002. On October 29, 2002, Robinson was found guilty on all charges. For the murders of Suzette and Lewiska, he was sentenced to death. For the murder of Lisa Stassi, he was given a life sentence. He was sentenced to life instead of death in Lisa's case because Lisa was murdered before Kansas had reinstated the death penalty. Then it was time for Robinson to face charges for the murders he committed in Missouri. The prosecution wanted Robinson to reveal the location of the remains of the missing women, but Robinson refused to cooperate. In October 2003, Robinson agreed to a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to the 5 other murders, and he was sentenced to life without parole. John Edward Robinson is considered the internet's first serial killer. He is also the basis for the urban legend of the internet Slavemaster. While Robinson has been convicted of 8 murders, the authorities believe that his victim count could be much higher. At the time of this video, Robinson is 76 years old. He is incarcerated at the El Dorado Correctional Facility in Prospect Township, Kansas. He is on death row, but Kansas has not executed anyone since 1965. Thank you so much for watching. We'll post the second part of this video in a few days. Until then, please check out my new channel, which I started with the creator of Top 5 Unknowns. It's called Chapter Dark, and every week we have a mystery for the viewer to solve. It's a bit like an escape room puzzle in a video, or an Encyclopedia Brown story, if you remember those. Also, most weeks we'll have guest stars. This week's video features the creator of the YouTube channel, Mr. Black Pasta. You can find a link to Chapter Dark and Mr. Black Pasta's channel in the description box below. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, we would love it if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, please subscribe for more videos just like it. You can also check out criminalist.com, where you can suggest cases, buy merch, and find out about an exclusive podcast. But that's all for today. Please don't forget to check out the second part of this video, which will be out in a few days. Thanks again for watching, and please stay safe.